Imagine a shadow creeping across the earth, a darkness swallowing the sun on March 29, 2025. A solar eclipse is coming, and with it, whispers of an ancient prophecy that could shake the foundations of the Vatican itself. Centuries ago, Saint Malachi foretold the fate of 112 popes, ending with Peter the Roman, a figure destined to lead the Church into chaos as Rome burns and tribulation descends. Some say Pope Francis, the man now at the helm, is that final pope. Is this eclipse a cosmic signal, a divine warning etched in the sky? The world teeters on the edge, global crises deepen, divisions within the Church widen, and the faithful grow restless. Solar eclipses have long been omens of upheaval, harbingers of judgment or transformation. Could this one mark the fall of an era, the rise of a spiritual awakening, or even the return of something greater? As tensions simmer over reforms, schisms threaten, and the planet braces for change, one question looms large. Is this the moment prophecy becomes reality? The clock is ticking, the skies are shifting, and the answers may lie just beyond the darkness. Stay with us, because what's coming might change everything you believe. On March 29, 2025, a solar eclipse will sweep across the skies, plunging parts of the Earth into an eerie twilight. This isn't just another celestial event. It's one that has people turning their eyes toward the Vatican, their minds racing with questions. What does it mean? Could this be more than a dance of the sun and moon? Some whisper about ancient prophecies, their voices tinged with both awe and unease. Among them, the prophecy of Saint Malachi stands out, a centuries-old vision that feels startlingly alive today. It speaks of the popes who have guided the Catholic Church through history, a line of 112 leaders stretching across time. And at the end of that line, a figure called Peter the Roman, the final pope, whose reign, it's said, will usher in the collapse of Rome itself and a period of unimaginable tribulation for the Church. As the eclipse looms closer, many are asking, is Pope Francis, the man now seated in St. Peter's Basilica, Peter's chair, the one St. Malachi saw in his prophetic gaze? Could this shadow falling over the earth be a signal that the end of an era is near? Imagine the scene. The sun dims, the air grows still, and millions look upward, their hearts pounding, with a mix of wonder and dread. For centuries, people have seen eclipses as more than mere astronomy. They've been omens, divine messages written in the heavens. Now, as 2025 approaches, this particular eclipse feels different. It's not just the timing, though that alone is striking, coming amid a world teetering on the edge of chaos. It's the way it aligns with whispers from the past, with words scribbled by a 12th century Irish bishop who claimed to see the future. St. Malachi's prophecy isn't some dusty relic. It's a riddle that keeps unfolding. Each pope in his list has come and gone, their reigns marked by cryptic phrases that believers swear match reality. Now, we're down to the last name on that list, Peter the Roman, the one who, according to the prophecy, will stand at the helm as the eternal city falls and the Church faces its darkest hour. Pope Francis, with his humble origins and bold leadership, doesn't fit the mold of a typical pontiff. Could that be why some see him as the fulfillment of this ancient warning? The Vatican itself seems to hum with tension as the date draws near. Pope Francis has never shied away from shaking things up. His calls for compassion, his focus on the poor, his willingness to challenge tradition. But these choices have stirred storms within the Church. Divisions deepen, voices clash, and the faithful wonder what it all means. Outside those sacred walls, the world churns with its own unrest. Wars simmer, climates shift, economies tremble. And then there's this eclipse, a cosmic punctuation mark that feels too perfectly timed to ignore. What if it's not just a shadow, but a spotlight? A moment when heaven itself is trying to speak. Some say it's a harbinger, a sign that the tribulation Saint Malachi foresaw is no longer a distant tale, but a chapter we're about to live. Others scoff, calling it coincidence. Yet the question lingers, tugging at the mind. Could March 29, 2025, be the day prophecy and reality collide? As the sun fades and the Vatican stands in silence, the world holds its breath, waiting for answers that may change everything. Saint Malachi's prophecy isn't just a whisper from the past. It's a thunderclap that still reverberates today, pulling us into its mystery. Picture this: a humble Irish bishop, centuries ago, gazing into a vision so vivid it etched itself into history. He saw the future of the Catholic Church laid out like a scroll, a list of 112 popes, each one marked by a cryptic phrase hinting at their reign. And at the very end of that list, a name that chills the soul: Peter the Roman. This final pope, Malachi warned, would rise in a time of chaos, shepherding the faithful through a storm unlike any before. His reign would see Rome, the glittering eternal cornerstone of the Church, reduced to ruins. Tribulation would descend, fierce and unrelenting, testing the faithful to their core. Now, as we stand on the edge of 2025, those words feel less like a dusty legend and more like a mirror held up to our time. Could Pope Francis, with his quiet strength and polarizing choices, be the one Malachi saw? The question hangs in the air, daring us to look closer. Let's step back into the prophecy's shadow. Malachi didn't just name Peter the Roman. He painted a scene of devastation and faith intertwined. Rome's destruction isn't some vague metaphor. It's a cataclysm, a shattering of the Church's heart. The faithful, he said, would face trials that would shake their foundations: persecution, division, perhaps even betrayal from within. This isn't a gentle fade into history. It's a reckoning. And Peter the Roman? He's no ordinary leader. He's the shepherd in the storm, the one tasked with holding the flock together as the world unravels. Some say his name ties back to Saint Peter, the first pope, a poetic echo that closes the circle of the Church's story. Others see it as a signal of Rome's literal end, a return to its roots before it all falls apart. Pope Francis, born Jorge Bergoglio, doesn't bear that name outright, but his choice of Francis, inspired by a saint of peace and renewal, carries its own weight. Could he be the symbolic Peter, cloaked in a modern guise? The debate rages among scholars, priests, and everyday believers. Walk into any church, and you'll hear the whispers. Pope Francis has led with a hand both gentle and firm, pushing the Church toward compassion while stirring fierce resistance. His papacy has been a lightning rod. Progressives cheer his openness. Traditionalists decry his reforms. Internal rifts widen, and the Vatican feels like a fortress under siege. Malachi's prophecy didn't spell out dates or details, but it left clues that seemed to pulse with life now. The Great Tribulation he foresaw. Could it be the cracks we see today? The scandals, the schisms, the fading trust in once unshakable institutions? And what of Rome's fall? Is it a physical collapse or a spiritual one? A church losing its grip on the world it once shaped? Pope Francis stands at this crossroads, his every move watched, weighed, judged. Some call him the last pope not with fear, but with hope. Maybe he's here to renew, not to end. Others feel a shiver of dread, sensing the shadow of Malachi's words creeping closer. As the prophecy unfurls, one thing is clear. It's no longer just a tale to ponder. It's a living question, gripping us all, demanding we decide what we believe before the storm breaks. Pope Francis's papacy has been a wildfire, blazing with bold moves, yet leaving scorched divides in its wake. Step into the Vatican today, and you'll feel the tension crackling in the air. This isn't a quiet reign. It's a battleground of ideals, where every decision echoes like a drumbeat through the faithful. Internal divisions have carved deep lines within the Church, splitting those who cling to tradition from those who embrace his vision of change. His reforms, daring, some say reckless, have ignited debates that refuse to simmer down. The Church's influence, once a towering force across continents, seems to falter in places, its voice softer amid the roar of a shifting world. Could this turmoil be the unraveling Saint Malachi foresaw? Some nod solemnly, pointing to his prophecy of tribulation, convinced these struggles are the first threads of a greater tapestry coming undone. Let's pull the curtain back on these challenges. Pope Francis has never been one to shy from the fray. He's opened doors, figuratively and sometimes literally, that his predecessors kept locked. Take LGBTQ+ rights, a topic that sets hearts racing and tongues wagging. He's spoken words of welcome, hinting at a church that might embrace rather than judge. Yet for every cheer, there's a hiss of dissent. Traditionalists clutch their rosaries, warning of a faith diluted, a doctrine betrayed. Then there's climate change, a cause he's hoisted high, urging the world to heed the Earth's cries. His encyclicals plead for stewardship, but critics scoff, calling it politics dressed in papal robes. Economic inequality rounds out the trio of flashpoints. He's railed against greed, championing the poor with a fervor that echoes St. Francis of Assisi, whose name he bears. Noble, yes, but it's stirred unease among those who see the Church's role as spiritual, not social. These aren't mere debates. They're fissures threatening to split the ground beneath St. Peter's Basilica. The Vatican hums with whispers of rebellion. Bishops clash in synods, their voices sharp with conviction. Lay people pick sides, their loyalty tested. The Church feels less like a monolith and more like a puzzle, with pieces slipping away. Its influence wanes in Europe, where pews sit empty, and in corners of the globe, where rival faiths or apathy gain ground. Some see this as a natural ebb in history's tide. Others, peering through Malachi's lens, call it destiny unfolding. The prophecy spoke of tribulation, extreme soul-shaking hardship. Could these fractures be its opening act? Is the Church's decline a sign that Rome's fall, literal or symbolic, is near? Pope Francis stands at the helm, steering through waves that grow wilder by the day. His every word a spark that could either heal or ignite. Picture the faithful watching, waiting. They wonder, is this the great test Malachi warned of? The Vatican's walls, steeped in centuries of power, now seem to tremble, not from invaders, but from within. Francis's reforms aim to renew, to breathe life into a church he sees as rigid. Yet the cost is steep. Each step forward alienates some, emboldens others, and leaves the institution teetering. Persecution, the prophecy said, would come. Perhaps it's not swords or chains this time, but the slow bleed of unity, the erosion of authority. As 2025 nears, with its looming eclipse casting a shadow both real and metaphorical, the question burns brighter. Are these struggles mere growing pains, or the birth pangs of the end? The Pope presses on, undaunted, but the faithful can't shake the feeling that something vast, something unstoppable, is stirring just beyond the horizon. Throughout history, solar eclipses have been more than fleeting shadows. They've been divine brushstrokes on the canvas of time, moments when the heavens seem to whisper secrets to those below. On March 29, 2025, another eclipse will darken the skies, and this time, it's stirring a restless hum across the earth. People don't just see a sun swallowed by the moon. They see an omen, a cosmic flare signaling change, judgment, or something even greater. Ancient kings trembled at these events, their priests scrambling to decode the will of the gods. The Bible itself speaks of darkened suns heralding the end of days. Now, as this celestial marvel approaches, it feels steeped in apocalyptic hues, a spotlight on a world already trembling with unrest. Could this eclipse be the marker some have long awaited, a bridge between prophecy and reality? Let's journey back through the ages. Eclipses have always carried weight. In Babylon, they foretold the fall of rulers. In medieval Europe, they sparked panic, with villagers clutching crosses as the day turned to night. Even science, for all its cold precision, can't strip away the awe they inspire. The 2025 eclipse isn't arriving in a vacuum. It's landing in a world on edge. Wars simmer in distant lands, their smoke curling into headlines. Oceans rise, storms rage, and the air feels thick with unease. Economies teeter, power shifts, and voices cry out for meaning. Against this backdrop, the eclipse looms like a judge's gavel, poised to strike. Some call it coincidence, but others see patterns. Threads tying this moment to tales of old, to warnings etched in sacred texts and whispered by seers like Saint Malachi. The apocalyptic undertones are impossible to ignore. Think of the book of Revelation. Skies blackening, stars falling, the earth groaning under divine wrath. Eclipses have long danced with such imagery, their rarity amplifying their mystique. This one, in particular, feels timed with uncanny precision. The Vatican watches, its faithful murmur, and fringe voices grow louder, claiming it's a sign of religious transformation or global reckoning. Malachi's prophecy of tribulation hovers in the air, his vision of a church tested and a Rome undone. Could this eclipse be the curtain rising on that drama? Some tie it to Pope Francis, the supposed final pope, his reign shadowed by division and doubt. The sun's fading light, they say, mirrors a faith under siege, a world tipping toward chaos. But it's not just the church that feels the weight. Beyond stained glass and stone cathedrals, the eclipse stirs a broader shiver. Global instability is no secret. Geopolitical fault lines crack wider each day. Nations flex their might, resources dwindle, and the planet itself seems to protest. To some, this celestial event is a trumpet blast, heralding upheaval. Wars could erupt, they warn, or powers could shift in ways no one predicts. Others see it as a quieter pivot, a moment when humanity faces itself, forced to reckon with its path. The eclipse, with its stark beauty, becomes a mirror. What do we see when the light dims? Judgment, renewal, or simply the next chapter in a story older than us all? As March 29th nears, the anticipation builds. Believers pray, skeptics scoff, and the curious crane their necks skyward. This isn't just about astronomy. It's about meaning, about what the heavens might be saying. Is it a divine nod to transformation, a warning of collapse, or both? The 2025 eclipse stands as a riddle, daring us to solve it. When the sun vanishes and the world holds its breath, one thing is certain. We'll feel the pull of something ancient, something vast, tugging at our souls. The Catholic Church stands at a crossroads, its ancient walls trembling under a storm brewing within. A schism, a word once whispered in hushed tones, now echoes louder, its possibility no longer a distant shadow, but a crack splitting the faithful. Pope Francis, with his bold strides toward progress, has lit a fuse. His openness to change, welcoming gestures toward the marginalized, softer stances on once rigid doctrines, has won him allies and enemies in equal measure. Yet the traditionalists, guardians of the old ways, dig in their heels. They see his papacy as a drift from the Church's timeless anchor, a betrayal of sacred truths. This growing divide isn't just a debate, it's a fracture threatening to cleave the institution in two. Could this be the prelude to St. Malachi's prophecy? The extreme persecution, the tribulation he saw looming over the final pope's reign? Picture the tension simmering in the pews and palaces of the Vatican. On one side, voices cheer Francis as a breath of fresh air, a shepherd for a modern flock. He's pushed for compassion over condemnation, urging the Church to meet people where they are, sinners, seekers, all. His words on climate, poverty, and inclusion ripple outward, stirring hope among those weary of stiff rituals. But on the other side, the air grows thick with dissent. Bishops clad in tradition clutch their mitres, warning of a faith unmoored. They mourn the loss of Latin masses, the softening of sin's sharp edges. To them, Francis's progressive leanings aren't renewal, they're erosion, a chipping away at the rock on which Peter built. This isn't mere disagreement, it's a clash of visions, each side convinced the soul of the Church hangs in the balance. The rift deepens daily, a chasm widening beneath St. Peter's dome. Synods turn into battlegrounds, where words fly like arrows. Cardinals spar over doctrine, their robes hiding hearts heavy with conviction. Lay people too feel the pull. Some drift away, disillusioned, while others cling tighter to their rosaries. The threat of a formal schism looms, a splintering into rival factions, each claiming the true mantle of Catholicism. History whispers reminders, the Great Schism of 1054, the Protestant Reformation. Could this be the third great break, the one Malachi's prophecy foresaw? He spoke of a church persecuted, tested to its breaking point. Some see this divide as that trial, not from external foes, but from within, a self-inflicted wound bleeding out unity and strength. The stakes are staggering. A schism could weaken the Church's voice in a world already skeptical of its sway. Once, its edicts shaped empires. Now, its influence wanes in corners where secular tides rise. Empty pews in Europe, rival faiths in Africa, apathy in the West. These are cracks in the foundation. Francis's reforms aim to shore them up, to make the Church relevant again. But the cost is steep. Each step toward progress alienates the old guard, risking a split that could leave both sides diminished. Malachi's warning of extreme persecution takes on new weight. Perhaps it's not fire and chains, but the slow unraveling of a once unshakable institution, its power fractured by its own hands. As 2025 dawns, with the solar eclipse casting its shadow, the faithful watch with bated breath. Is this divide a passing storm, or the birth of something irreversible? Francis presses on, undeterred, his eyes fixed on a church reborn. Yet the traditionalists stand firm, their prayers a fortress against change. The prophecy lingers, its words a haunting refrain. Tribulation, ruin, a final pope. Could this schism be the spark that lights Malachi's fire? The Vatican holds its secrets close, but the faithful feel it. A reckoning is near, and the Church may never be the same. The solar eclipse of March 29, 2025, isn't arriving alone. It's stepping onto a stage already set with chaos, a world teetering on the brink. Picture the scene. Skies darkening as the moon claims the sun, casting an otherworldly hush over the earth. But beneath that shadow, the planet hums with unease. Economic instability rattles markets, their fragile threads snapping under the weight of debt and greed. Environmental crises howl louder, floods swallow towns, fires devour forests, and the air chokes with warnings we've ignored too long. Geopolitical tensions simmer, borders bristling with mistrust as leaders flex power like swords drawn in the dark. Into this maelstrom comes the eclipse, a celestial guest that feels less like a visitor and more like a herald. Could it be signaling something vast, societal upheaval, wars igniting, or a seismic shift in the balance of power? Let's peel back the layers of this moment. The economy staggers, a giant with feet of clay. Banks falter, currencies wobble, and whispers of collapse grow louder. People clutch dwindling savings, their faith in systems fraying. Meanwhile, the earth itself rebels. Rising seas lap at cities, storms batter coasts with fury, and heat waves sear the land. Scientists plead, their charts a grim prophecy of tipping points crossed. Yet governments bicker, their solutions too little, too late. Then there's the world stage. Nations eye each other warily, alliances strain, and old rivalries flare anew. Missiles gleam in silos, diplomats weave fragile truces, and the scent of conflict lingers. This is the crucible the eclipse enters, its shadow falling on a humanity already stretched thin. Some see it as more than chance. Eclipses have always stirred the imagination. Ancient tribes beat drums to chase away the darkness. Emperors read them as omens of doom. Today, that primal instinct lingers. The 2025 eclipse aligns with a world that feels unmoored, its timing too striking to dismiss. Voices, some frantic, some calm, point to St. Malachi's prophecy, his vision of tribulation crashing into Rome's ruins. Could this be the hour he glimpsed, when celestial signs and earthly woes collide? The faithful wonder if it's a divine nudge, a warning etched in the sky. Others, less tethered to scripture, still feel the weight. Perhaps it's a signal of upheaval, a spark that could light the fuse of wars or topple powers we thought untouchable. The possibilities ripple outward, each one gripping the mind. Imagine societies fracturing under the strain, riots in streets choked with anger, governments buckling as trust dissolves. Wars could erupt, not distant skirmishes, but clashes that redraw maps in blood. Or maybe it's subtler, a shift in power, where empires fade and new voices rise from the ashes. The eclipse becomes a lens, magnifying what's already breaking. Environmental collapse could accelerate, forcing migrations that strain borders and ignite strife. Economic ruin might birth revolutions, the have-nots rising against the haves. Every scenario feels plausible, each thread tied to a world already unraveling at the seams. As the date nears, the air thickens with anticipation. People crane their necks skyward, not just for the spectacle, but for answers. Is this eclipse a mirror reflecting our chaos back at us? Or is it a trumpet sounding the next chapter? Violent, transformative, or both? The faithful clutch their prayers, the wary stockpile their fears, and the curious search the heavens for clues. March 29, 2025, looms like a question mark written in shadow, daring us to guess what lies beyond. When the sun dims and the world pauses, one truth emerges. This isn't just a moment, it's a reckoning, a collision of sky and earth that could change everything. Spiritual transformation, a new awakening, or the end of an era. Throughout history, celestial events have been regarded as divine messages, signaling transformation, warning of impending doom, or ushering in new spiritual eras. The total solar eclipse of March 29, 2025, is no exception. As the world teeters on the edge of uncertainty, facing economic crises, environmental disasters, and rising global tensions, many are beginning to wonder, could this eclipse mark the beginning of a profound spiritual awakening? Or does it signify the end of an era, as some prophecies suggest? A shift in faith and consciousness. In recent decades, organized religion has faced significant decline, particularly in Western nations. The rise of secularism, scientific advancements, and increasing skepticism toward religious institutions have led to a crisis of faith for many. However, while traditional religious structures weaken, there has been a simultaneous surge in spiritual exploration. People are turning to alternative belief systems, seeking personal enlightenment through meditation, mysticism, and ancient wisdom traditions. Could this be a sign of a new era of spirituality, one that transcends institutionalized faith and instead fosters a deeper, more personal connection with the divine? Some scholars and mystics believe that humanity is on the verge of a global spiritual shift. They argue that the upcoming eclipse could serve as a cosmic marker, an event that awakens a new level of consciousness, encouraging people to question their beliefs, reevaluate their values, and seek a higher understanding of existence. This idea aligns with various esoteric teachings, which suggest that celestial events like eclipses are not merely astronomical occurrences, but portals to transformation. The eclipse as a catalyst for prophecy. Many religious traditions have long associated eclipses with divine warnings and spiritual turning points. In Christian eschatology, eclipses have often been seen as harbingers of the end times, signaling major upheavals that precede the second coming or a final judgment. Could this eclipse mark a pivotal moment in human history? Some believers speculate that the 2025 solar eclipse may align with what is known as the illumination of conscience, a prophesied supernatural event in which individuals across the world experience a moment of divine revelation. This event, sometimes referred to as the warning, is believed to offer humanity a final chance to recognize their spiritual state and to turn back to faith before a period of tribulation begins. If such an event were to take place, it could shake the foundations of belief systems worldwide, leading to a mass return to faith, or conversely, a deeper fragmentation among those who resist the message. A new age of enlightenment or global crisis. While some view the eclipse as a beacon of hope, a sign of spiritual renewal, others fear it could mark the acceleration of chaos and destruction. With global conflicts escalating, economic instability worsening, and natural disasters becoming more frequent, could this celestial event be a warning that humanity is reaching a breaking point? Some theorists suggest that the convergence of these crises with a major celestial event might not be a coincidence, but rather a sign that we are standing at a crossroads, one where our collective choices will determine the future of civilization. If this is indeed a moment of transformation, what will come next? Will the world witness a resurgence of faith, a rise in spiritual consciousness, and a return to divine principles? Or will we see the collapse of religious institutions, the emergence of new belief systems, and a shift toward a post-religious society? Final thoughts. A moment to reflect. Regardless of whether one believes in prophecy or sees the eclipse as a purely scientific event, it undeniably serves as a moment of reflection. The vastness of the universe, the precise timing of celestial movements, and the beauty of such cosmic events remind us of our small yet significant place in the grand design. The question remains, Will this eclipse simply pass as another moment in history, or will it leave a lasting impact on our spiritual consciousness? As the world watches the skies on March 29th, 2025, one thing is certain: humanity is in a period of profound change. Whether this transformation is spiritual, ideological, or existential, the signs in the heavens are impossible to ignore. As I sit with the weight of this story, I find myself caught between awe and unease. The idea that a solar eclipse on March 29th, 2025, could tie into St. Malachi's prophecy about Pope Francis and the Vatican's fate feels both surreal and hauntingly plausible. It's not just the celestial event that grips me. It's the way it mirrors our world's fractures: a church divided, a planet in crisis, and a search for meaning amid the chaos. I wonder if we're witnessing a cosmic coincidence or something deeper, something that challenges us to look beyond the surface of our lives. What strikes me most is how these ancient words still stir us, urging us to question what we hold certain. The takeaway here isn't about predicting doom or declaring the end. It's about recognizing that moments like these, eclipses, prophecies, shifts in power, push us to reflect on where we stand. They remind us that history, faith, and the universe are intertwined in ways we may never fully grasp. Whether the prophecy unfolds or not, the real power lies in what it reveals about us, our hopes, our fears, and our capacity to seek truth in the shadows. So, I invite you to step into this mystery with me. Don't just watch the eclipse, ponder it. Dig into the prophecy, explore the Vatican's struggles, and ask yourself what you believe. Talk to someone about it. Challenge your assumptions, or simply sit with the questions. The skies will darken soon, but the light of curiosity can burn brighter. Let's not shy away from the unknown. Let's chase it together and see where it leads. Because in the end, it's not just about what happens above us. It's about what stirs within us.